everybody. Thanks once again for showing up in my YouTube channel. And I'm sure this time it's going to be even more worthy because I have here with me Martin Locklear. And hi, Martin.
Hi, Juliana.
The conversation we had before recording this video was already amazing. So I'm really excited to be back here and share with you all his insights. Let me just share a spoiler here. Martin landed a brand new job fully remotely in 1 month only, in the middle of COVID-19. So yeah, I'm sure by this time you're dying to hear more. I'm also really interested. So Martin, thank you once again for being here and for your time.
I'm happy to be here. Yeah, this is exciting.
Nice, nice. So do you mind introducing yourself and giving us more details about what exactly happened to your job in March 2020, in the middle of the pandemic?
Yeah, again, I'm Martin. I'm a software engineer, so I work in tech. I've been in tech for 6 years now, 7 years now, plus a little bit before that when I was doing small consulting before university. And I was working for a company based in Santa Monica. I've been fully remote for about 4 years now. And the pandemic hit. Our numbers sort of tanked. And everybody panicked. And so the company, which was a pretty decent sized company, about 1,200 people, laid off a significant portion of its workforce, right?
Wow.
So I think it was like 30 or 40%.
Wow.
And yeah, and I was in between projects. So I was a really easy match for that.
Unfortunately.
Unfortunately. And I was sort of looking around for other things anyway. So it was a good fit for me to part ways with that particular company. But it is unfortunate because I imagined when I left that company, I would spend a bunch of time traveling, and here we are.
It didn't happen. Yeah. So that was March this year, March 2020.
That was March. It was the end of March. Yeah.
Okay.
We got notice.
Yeah. Okay. And what did you do right after that? Once you got laid off from the company?
So for the first month, I basically didn't do anything. I was sort of looking for a job, not really. Mostly I was like, all right, I'm going to take this time. I'm going to read a bunch of books. I'm going to refresh some of my skills. I'm going to take a beat, right? I was really lucky in the sense that I didn't need a job immediately after my previous one. So I didn't feel a strong sense of urgency. So I just sort of slowly refreshed some skills, updated my resume, started talking to other people. One of the things that happened was because so many people left the company at the same time is that we formed a Slack group, a community. And so it was about 200 people, all sort of sharing ideas and giving each other moral support and helping each other navigate the process of unemployment and then finding a new job.
Okay. So sorry to tell you, but you did a lot of things. You were updating your curriculum, you're reading books, you were supporting each other, you're creating a Slack community. So you did a lot of things maybe you don't realize, but you did. Okay.
I think that's fair. I think I certainly did things. I think the mental perspective of being all right, I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to do this one thing. Still not going to do anything, but I'm just going to do this other thing was a really nice way to be all right, I'm relaxing while still being a little productive.
Yeah. And how was the importance of those things that you didn't do, but you did in this month right after you lost the job to leveraging your network? So how was the importance of that in the process of landing a job right after?
So it was hugely important. When I was eventually looking for a job, I always wanted to have a connection into the company before I even applied, right? And so solidifying those connections that I had beforehand, just refreshing connections that maybe people I haven't even talked to in a while, and just reaching out to them and saying, hey, how's it going? I know, were you impacted by this as well? And now you have that nice relationship kind of started again. And then later on, you can reach out to them and be like, hey, I'm looking for this kind of thing. Do you know somebody at this company? And so I did a lot of that beforehand. I mean, it wasn't the intent. Mostly there was a lot of solidarity with the people that had all got laid off together, but also more broadly with the greater community. I think we've all seen this. Lots of people are having a rough time right now. So
people were helping each other. Yeah, I saw that a lot also. Yeah. And why do you consider that so important? Why did you mention that you want to have connections with people, you want to know people that worked in the company before you apply for a job in that company? Why is that so important?
Eventually, once I was actually actively looking for a job, that was the first thing that I did. I didn't apply. I would identify jobs and companies that I was interested in, and then before I would apply, before I would reach out to the company itself, I would reach out to my network and say, "Who does anybody know here? Anybody here?" I would look on LinkedIn and find parallel connections. I would post on Facebook that I'm interested in having a conversation with anybody at, I would post like 3 or 4 companies at a time and maybe get some hits. Post on the various Slack groups that I'm like interested in having a conversation. And that the reason I did that is I was 2 things. One, I'm really interested in finding a company that is a good fit. People are excited to work there. People want to work there. And it's sort of hard to get that feeling from recruiters, get that feeling from interviewers, because they're selling the company to you as much as you're selling them yourself to the
Exactly.
company.
Yeah.
But if you have an off the record conversation with somebody before you've even
You
applied,
get so
you
much more information, right? Yeah.
Mhm.
Very valuable. But very few people do that. Normally people go straight to the apply button, and
Mhm.
this was the last thing you're doing the process. So that's why I think it's
Oh
so
yeah.
valuable, because you can get a lot of information that is not written in the job description. The recruiters won't give you, they won't be
Mhm.
posted officially on the website. So it's gathering
Yes.
more information and combining everything to make your own decision about it. So it's amazing.
100%. And for from the company side, you now have a potential advocate inside the company that can like
Exactly.
say, all right, this is the person that I talked to. They seem like a reasonable human being, right? Like
Exactly.
the first, when you get a bunch of resumes, I've done a bunch of hiring in the past. When you get a bunch of resumes, you never know whether like what the spectrum is, right? Until you've actually had a conversation with somebody. And
Yeah.
so that's golden information for the recruiting side. And so every
Yeah.
single time I got a company where I was able to have that conversation, they reached out to me.
Nice, nice. And when you click the apply button, it shouldn't be the first time they hear about you, because you have been creating connections already. So it's almost natural that you're going to apply for that position after everything you have done and after they know you already. So it's just like
Hmm.
one more step, not the first step and not the most important step. So by the time your decision towards the job is already done, and probably
Hmm.
their decision about we want to interview him is already done also. So I like how you were creating other steps before
Hmm.
clicking the apply button. Interesting. I remember
Yeah.
you mentioned also a checklist, right? That you created your own
Oh yeah.
checklist, the steps you were following every time, just to make sure you were not forgetting everything. So this seems like a really valuable information. Do you mind sharing a little bit about this secret?
Of course. Absolutely. So I think that looking for a job is one of the most like it takes so much energy and effort and focus that anything that you can do to make it easier on yourself is really important, right?
Yeah.
So that you can do more of it without burning yourself out and destroying yourself. Also, it takes time. So I sort of look at finding a job as very similar to enterprise sales, business sales. Like you're building a relationship, you're doing research, you're slowly bringing people through all the various touches. And so I sort of created that in a checklist for myself.
Nice.
The first step was always like, here's my list of companies that I want to do research on. So this is my lead gen pool, right? And then
Okay.
I'll pick like 4 or 5 of those a day and do research. And research is finding out what I can about their culture, finding out whether or not they're remote positive, reaching out to my network and seeing if anybody knows anybody there.
So it's
And
not the typical, I'm going to check the website of the company for 2 minutes. It's way deeper than that, right?
yeah,
It's way more than
absolutely.
that.
Yeah. And all those things take a lot of time. So you can't go from zero to applied and like having a conversation with a recruiter in a day. And so
Yeah.
you kind of have to front load these because you have to like if you're going to reach out to your network, you have to give people time to respond. And so I would just move companies through my process. Like, all
Nice.
right, first thing is do the research and reach out to your network. Second thing is reach out to the recruiters and these things, and then just build the process that works for me and the particular jobs that I'm applying for, and then I don't have to think about it for any given job. And because I'm taking good notes of what I'm doing with any given job, I don't have to remember
Yes.
where I am with
You
each
can
job,
just
who I've
read.
spoken to.
Were you blocking a time in your agenda to do that? Or it was kind of whenever I feel like during the day? How were you organizing that?
Generally speaking, have a goal of moving every batch one stage every day. and
Okay.
however long that took. So like I would try to do 3 or 4 companies a day. And that's like, so you're researching 3 or 4 companies, and then you're following up on 3 or 4 companies. And then at that point, once you've developed you've started a conversation, like you reach out a recruiter, you're talking to somebody, you've applied and they're reaching out to you, or you're doing the interview process. You're sort of beholden to their schedule, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
where you can like match. So
Yeah.
you have a little bit less control over how much time you spend on each thing a day. I found it more effective to focus on getting things through the process than setting a chunk of time, especially once I started having conversations with recruiters and interviews and started getting that feedback. Then it was just like whatever I had time and energy for that day.
But it seems like a lot of time. You definitely were putting time and organizing yourself. That's why it worked. Yeah, but it's
Yeah.
it's it's nice to highlight that it's not magic and it won't happen if you're just on the couch watching
No.
Netflix. There is a lot of things to be done from your side that you can control, that you can be
Yeah,
in
absolutely.
charge. Yeah,
It's
interesting.
it takes a lot of time. It's definitely, I was probably spending as much time actively working on finding a job as when I had a job, once I was
Yeah,
in the middle of actually doing it. And I sort of think that's the right balance. Everybody has a different set of energy, and like finding a job takes a lot of effort, but like finding the balance is right, and then doing things so that you can spend the same amount of energy and like reach out to
more
more
result.
jobs
Mm-hmm.
is the best thing that you can do.
Yeah, yeah. And again, you landed a new job after 1 month of very active job search in the middle of
Hmm.
the pandemic. So it was worth it, the time and the
Yeah.
method and your checklist and all of that. I remember you mentioned that you were at some point considering big companies like Google, Facebook, Amazon, and all of that. But then you were also open to smaller companies, maybe the ones that we don't hear all the time talking about them. And there are also good options out there. So what is your experience now after you have been through the process and investigated deeply about each of those companies? What can you say about not
So
so famous companies?
I personally haven't held a lot of interest for my career to land at one of these larger companies like Google or Facebook or Amazon. I find that I'm looking for places where I can individually make a bigger impact, and that goes the other way too. So smaller companies are looking for uh, the specific need that they have at that moment, or specific fits. Like they want people to come in and be an active part and make a really big contribution. Whereas at larger companies, they're like, all right, I need to hire 1,000 people. They all need to meet this metric,
Yeah,
and then after that, it's just not as personalized. I feel like there's a lot more humanity in smaller companies, right? Because they have the option to.
yeah,
Um, and I also find that like a lot of the smaller companies that are overlooked, because they're being more selective on who they hire, are able to meet the compensation metrics that are that Google and Facebook and Amazon are.
that's
They just
amazing.
aren't known for it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I'm not compromising on compensation for quality of experience that some people might have, right?
Yeah, yeah. But it's good this perspective that middle-sized companies, they might pay you the same salary that a big company. And
Mhm.
you're going to have a more personalized process, and maybe you have more freedom to create stuff and to add your own way of doing things, while big companies, they are very standardized in the process and all of that. I agree. Well, I'm still very impressed with what you have done in 1 month. It's a bit more than 1 month, because the month you said you're doing nothing, you were doing a lot of
Yeah,
things. So let's say 2 months.
true.
But still,
Yeah.
in the middle of the pandemic, a job that you could choose that met your criteria, your cultural fit, and all of that. So from the outside, it looks very, very impressive. Congrats once again.
Thank you. Yeah, I feel really, really happy with the results.
Yeah. From the inside, now that you are, you're already working and you're talking about your experience, it's somehow in the past, it's still very recent. But when you look
Mhm.
back and you see the process that you have been following, if you were in a situation that you had again to start the job searching process, would you do things exactly the same way you did, Martin? Or now the time passed, did you identify anything that you would do different or change completely? I don't know. How is your perspective looking back now to the process? Would you change anything?
I pretty much would do the same thing. I liked the results that I had. The problem towards the end of my process was that this is a good problem to have. I was having conversations and too many interviews, right?
Too
And
many
interviews,
interviews. Oh, that's an
especially,
amazing problem to have.
yeah. So I feel a little guilty complaining about this, but
No, no,
I
go ahead. It's your
underestimate.
time. You can complain about. No, no, seriously, it can be stressful too. And I tell my clients, like,
Mhm.
this is the kind of problem I want you to have, because there are other problems that you can have in a job searching process. So you can have, you're not being called for the interview, you're not passing the interview, all the offers you
Mhm.
like, the conditions are not worth it. So there are a lot of problems. So this is a problem. It's a real
Yeah.
problem. But I think comparing to other problems is a good one to have.
Definitely. What I learned, so I underestimated the amount of interest that I was going to have, right? The number of people that were going to want to get back and have interviews with me. And
Nice.
so was having conversations with more companies expecting people to decline me sooner than I anticipated.
Okay.
And so I ended up being in a lot of interviews. And the downside to that is if you're having a 5-hour interview every day on a week,
Wow,
is that
that's
you're
a
not
lot.
bringing your best face to interviews the second interview the next day, whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
And I know that there's at least one company and probably at least one other that I didn't get offers from because I didn't bring my freshest face to the
Because
interview
you're tired, because you're
because
putting
I
too
was
much
tired.
time and energy on it. Okay. And it was
Yeah.
after you were already working on the job search very intensely. So it was,
Hmm.
your energy was already going down because it was a lot of
Yeah.
time.
And so I probably wouldn't do that quite the same. I probably would spread things out a little bit more for myself. But
Mhm.
it's hard to say. I think that like understanding your marketability, understanding how many people are going to get back to you really informs your process.
Yeah.
And I was just lucky in that a lot of people reached out to me. I happened to hit the right companies at the right time, I think, and I had good network into them. If I didn't have that, then I think the volume of conversations that I was having
Would be
probably
lower.
would have been about lower.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But I think you never know until you try. So
Hmm.
it's in your best interest to do everything you can, create your own checklist, your methodology, define how many hours you want to do that, reach out to your network,
Hmm.
all of that. So you test the market, because maybe even doing all of that, you won't get a big reply because, I don't know,
Right.
it's not a position that the market is in need at the moment, or because,
Hmm.
I don't know, companies are not hiring. So there are few things that need to be considered, but you need to check.
100%.
That's what you did. I think there was no way to know in advance exactly how it was going to be. And for people who are watching us right now, I know a lot of my followers, they unfortunately got laid off also. Like, it happened to you because of the pandemic, or people are really seeing this option coming close because they
Hmm.
see change in their companies and in the job market in general. So a lot of people come to me and say, but Juliana, do you think this is a good time right now in the middle of the pandemic, or at the end of the pandemic, depending on which part of the world you are, but it's still in the pandemic environment, let's say, to search for a new job? Shall I wait a bit more? Is it worth it to put time right now? So based on your experience, again, which is your message for people who are watching and they are hesitating, like, is this the best time to look for a job, or shall I wait a bit?
I think that my advice would be that it's going to be different for everybody based on where they are in their circumstances. But
Yeah.
if your goal is to advance your career, there's always something that you can do, right? And so like just like I did spend my first month upping my skills, researching things, learning new things, you can do the same kind of thing. Or you can invest in your network, right? Find people and that are in the industry. Keep yourself open to opportunities that you wouldn't have expected to. And then even if you're not actively job searching right now, if that's not the right thing for you, if the world doesn't like lend itself and your personal environment doesn't lend itself to like doing interviews right this second, there's tons of things that you can do to set yourself up so that when you decide that that's what's right for you, you'll be in a much better position. And so
Yeah.
that's the balance, I think.
That's amazing. Yeah. Again, it's not only click the apply button. There are a lot of things that can be done, that can and should be done before. But what I see is that people underestimate that. They still have this mentality that job searching process is finding a job that is posted somewhere and send your curriculum by applying clicking the applying button. So there are a lot of other things that can be done even more effective. So sometimes it's just a formality. Okay, you have to send your
Mhm.
curriculum so we can move you ahead in the process. But the decision is already done. The connections are there. You already showed value. Thank you very much, Martin, for
Definitely.
sharing all of
Thank you
that.
for having me.
All the best in your new job. Enjoy it. And yeah, thanks for sharing all your secrets with us. Take care.
Best luck to everybody.
Bye.